Sawadee Krupp, and welcome to Arival Asia Pacific. Welcome to Asia's first event dedicated to the in-destination industry, to creators and sellers of tours, activities, attractions, events, and experiences, all of the things that travelers do when they get there. Now, as we're all assembled here for the first time, as we are about to begin on this journey together over the next 2 days, I think there's only one key question that we should try to answer, and it's a pretty obvious one. Why? Seriously, why are we here? And I don't mean why are you here? I don't mean we all want to have new customers and more partners. We all want to learn about what's going on in the industry. But I'm talking about something a little bit more universal, a little bit bigger. Why are we here? Why have more than 500 of you come together like this as an industry for the first time? What is this taking place in the industry that is driving us to do this? Why would we make this commitment, not just to advance our own businesses, but to advance our industry? About a year ago, when we announced that we were coming to Asia, we spoke to as many people as possible to try to understand what's happening in this industry. What do we need to know to put on an event that is really relevant for what's taking place in Asia Pacific? And it was interesting. We spoke to a lot of people, and this one theme kept on coming back, especially from some folks that had their doubts. We heard this over and over again. Asia is behind in terms of technology, connectivity, the adoption of new reservation systems, how they were working with distributors. Operators a little bit conservative, cautious about investing in new technology, not ready for online booking and mobile and all of this. I thought that was interesting to hear this, all of these opinions. However, we at Arival, and when I'm making business decisions, opinions are important for sure, but I prefer to rely on facts and data. And there was some data that inspired us to move forward. First, Asia Pacific, it is the most important region for travel and tourism worldwide. In terms of gross booking value, Asia Pacific is $50 billion larger than the US, $100 billion larger than Europe, and it is growing faster, significantly faster. Just to give you a sense of this average growth rate over this 5-year period, Asia Pacific will add $150 billion in gross market value. That is equivalent to the entire travel markets of Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. That is extraordinary. Now, there's no exact sizing for our industry, for tours, activities, and attractions, but all of the research that we've done, that we've seen, points to it being about 10% of spend of the rest of the travel industry. That would make the in-destination industry about $45 billion in Asia Pacific. That's pretty significant. That would make our industry the 4th largest in Asia Pacific. Actually, in the world, it's the 3rd largest category, but because of rail here, it's the 4th largest. So, some pretty interesting facts and data about the marketplace here. There's also some pretty interesting firsts about tours and activities in Asia. For example, the first OTA, or online travel agency for tours and activities and attractions, was founded not in the United States, not in Silicon Valley, but here in this part of the world, in Australia. Of course, I am talking about Viator, which I think was founded in 1995. Some of the early employees are actually here at this conference. I believe we have the founder, Rod Cuthbert. Rod, are you here? You standing up? Why don't you stand up, Rod, so everyone can see you. He hasn't been able to get tours and activities out of his blood. So, Another really interesting first about our industry here in Asia, the first public stock offering for an online travel agency in our industry has taken place here in Asia. Of course, I'm talking about Veltra, the OTA based in Japan. For those of you who have not been tracking, they went public in December, and the stock has performed pretty okay. Not too bad. Here's another number, $1.2 billion. Investors of all types have poured $1.2 billion into startups of all types within our industry since 2017. Where has more of that money gone? You guessed it, Asia. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking, but it's not true. Not all of it has gone to one particular OTA that's based in Hong Kong. Many companies. And here are just some of the companies that have some more of the significant funding rounds. So when I look at all of this data, all of these facts, what occurs to me is is Asia Pacific ready for an event? Is it ready for our industry to come together? What occurs to me is, why hasn't this happened already? So this is the fourth largest sector of travel and tourism in Asia, but there's more. It's also the most important. This is why people travel. You are the reason why people travel. You drive tourism. When we ask travelers, what's really important to you? What do you remember the most? What do you take the most photos of? Have a look. It is not flights and hotels. And you know what? When they take those trips, on average, how many tours, activities, experiences, or attractions do they buy and engage in? 7. That's a really nice number. How many hotels do you think they stay in on that average trip? How many flights do you think they take? On average, I'm going to guess it's not 7. So this is the fourth largest sector of travel in Asia. It is the most important. So we at Arival, we call it the best part of travel. However, the best part of travel, it's not like the rest of travel. Airlines and hotels, those are very distinct industries. They have very similar practices. Our industry, the in-destination industry, it is comprised of hundreds of different types of businesses. So diverse, right? Sightseeing in Nepal, cooking classes in Vietnam, bungee jumping in Sentosa, walking and food tours in Thailand. So many different types of businesses, very different needs and ambitions. But they're all bound by one common thread. It's all about creating amazing experiences for travelers in destination. And those travelers, how they think about you, how they plan their trips, how they plan and decide how they're going to purchase your experiences, it's completely different from how they think about flights and hotels. Here's just an example. We'll look at Southeast Asian travelers in the booking window for hotels. You can see about 80% are booked at least 2 weeks in advance. So as a point of comparison, we work with one of our partners, Be My Guest. We look at a sample of several 100,000 transactions. It's very different, the booking window. Look at that. That is quite significant. So that means how they're thinking about you, but how they plan their trips and their experiences, it is very different. So we believed at Arival that we needed to create something that was dedicated not to airlines, not to hotels, but to operators of tours, activities, and attractions. That it was time for an event, a forum, a place where we could come together and debate and discuss the issues and gain the insights that were relevant not to the rest of travel, but to the best part of travel, to all of you. So let's talk a little bit about you. This is you. There are more than 500 of you here from about 250 companies and 34 countries. Most of you are from Asia, 10% or so from Australia and New Zealand. A number of you, a little bit more than a fifth, are from the Americas and Europe. Number of companies over there very interested in the next big wave of growth, which is coming from here. The types of companies. So most of the companies who are here are operators. And this is a word you'll hear a lot. This is the word we use to define the creators, the deliverers, the owners of tours, activities, events, experiences. There's also a lot of tech companies and distribution companies, a lot of the companies that are driving the change, the innovation, the disruption in our marketplace. Now, this gives you a sense of like who's here and the stats and so forth, a bit of the composition of our industry, but it doesn't tell the stories, the individual stories that make this industry the best part of travel. So I just want to share a few of them. So we'll start with Gaukar Dosova, the co-founder of Friendly Tours from Kazakhstan. So Gaukar, so this photo, I have to say, it never occurred to me that Kazakhstan would be on my destination bucket list, but when I saw this photo, I was curious. Could you tell us where are you standing?
Hello, everyone. Gaukar from Kazakhstan. So what you see is Altyn National Park. We call it lunar landscapes, just 4 hours of comfortable driving from the biggest city of Kazakhstan. It's chalky mountains, 400 million years old. And as you see, it's only me. So it's a usual day, and it's only me in the whole national park. You know, there are no lines, no people at all. So.
And how long were you standing in that position?
Yeah. Well, you know, we enjoyed for 2 hours walking around the mountains, and Central Asia and Kazakhstan, especially, it's an emerging touristic area where mostly now there are no crowds, no people. It's the best time to visit our country is now.
Well, it never occurred to me to think of Kazakhstan as a destination, I must confess, but now it's been added to the Quinby family bucket list, so thank you.
Okay, welcome.
So next, we have Mani Kare from the Philippines, the Chief Operating Officer of CTPH Tour. So, hello.
Hi, everyone.
So the reason why I wanted to ask you to stand up and speak actually is because, so you're listed here and you registered as the Chief Operating Officer.
Yes.
However, when I looked you up on LinkedIn, you have a different title. You're actually the Chief Heart Officer. So I would just like to know, what's the role of a Chief Heart Officer?
If you've ever heard of Gary Vee, I got it from him, but because I think I also lead the company using my heart, and I think that's our secret sauce. That's why we lasted this. We're almost 10 years now.
Right. Well, I think maybe Arival should have a Chief Heart Officer as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you. Hey, next, we have Anirudh Shukla, the founding director of Vedic Walks from Rajasthan, India.
Good morning, everybody.
So when I saw your career, so you've worked at big brands. You had a totally fantastic career, Kuoni, and why would you give that up to go off and start your own tour company?
Right. Yes, did work with a couple of big brands. And what I believe is working with a bigger organization give you a bigger perspective as well. And what I saw, a missing link, especially in the Indian region, were the operators who were dedicatedly working for responsible and sustainable tourism. And that's what I was pretty keen on. And with my background, my mother has been a social activist, so I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for me with the experience in the same domain, and take my vision forward with Vedic Walks.
And your parents weren't worried? Your mom wasn't worried about you venturing off on your own and starting your own business?
Oh, yes, she was initially. Rather, I would say for the couple of years, she was not just a mom, she was a momster. She saw me investing so much, and the return weren't as per her expectations. But now, all said, she also take a lead role in my company, and yeah, so far so good.
Fantastic. Well, welcome and congratulations.
Most welcome. Thank you.
And last, recently arrived from the Bangkok traffic is, and forgive me, I'm going to do my best here.
Paka.
Paka?
Yes,
Lazo?
Yes.
Okay, from the managing director and the founder of Zulu Nomad, all the way from South Africa. I think the only person here from South Africa, so so welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you can't see her, but the smile on her face, it's as big as the smile in that photo up there. I don't know, yeah, right over there.
Glad you made it on time.
So where are you there? I mean, you just look so happy.
That is on a dhow boat in Mozambique.
Wow.
And that is our most popular tour from Johannesburg. And Mozambique is absolutely stunning. Definitely one of the most underrated destinations in Africa at the moment.
Fantastic. And so you're not also a tour operator, but you're also trying to advance digital innovation in tourism in South Africa. You're trying to organize a hackathon. When is that taking place?
The hackathon, we will be hacking on the premier class train from Johannesburg to Cape Town. In September, on the 5th of September, we leave Johannesburg, and it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal hackathon. It's the first Africa travel hackathon specifically, and we're really hoping to do some really, really great things. As you guys can see, I'm the only African operator here, because we really do want to learn and take back whatever it is that we get from this conference back to South Africa and the continent.
Awesome. Well, so anyone who's interested in digital innovation and a hackathon in South Africa, you know who to speak to now. So welcome.
Thank you.
So these are just 4 of so many amazing stories. I mean, not just in our industry, but in this room. I wish we could tell them all, but I promise you at Arival, we have just begun to tell and share some of these stories about the in-destination industry. Now, so going back to that original question, though, I don't know, have I answered it? Why are we all here? Really, like, what's going on in our industry? What are the things that are going to drive our conversations on stage and among all of you outside in your meetings over the next 2 days? So I'm going to walk through a few things that we think are really important and are driving our discussions here. So the first, our industry. You know, what are we? We're the 4th largest sector of travel and tourism in Asia Pacific, but what do we call ourselves? What's included? I think if we are going to be an industry and come together like an industry, we have to act like one. So we call this industry the in-destination industry, and we have identified 5 major categories of product types: tours, activities, events, attractions, and ground transportation. That slide from before with the hundreds of different business types all fall into one of these types of categories. However, some of you have been using a word that's not on this slide. It's the E word, popularized by a little company called Airbnb a couple of years ago. And of course, I'm talking about experiences. It's an interesting question, right? What is an experience exactly? Isn't a tour an experience? Isn't an attraction an experience? If I go to a museum, aren't I having an experience? I think I am. But this also raises some interesting questions. Can anybody provide an experience? Can anybody be a tour guide? Do we regulate this? How do we regulate this? Should our regulations change? We will be discussing this. Next, and this is perhaps the most important, and not just for Asia Pacific, but quite honestly, for the entire marketplace around the world, we are confronted with this rapidly rising generation of millennials and rising Gen Z. They are completely transforming the nature of sales and marketing and distribution. It's absolutely extraordinary. They are more kind of digitally not just engaged or savvy, but they are dependent. And yet, travelers, especially from Asia, are increasingly independent. They're increasingly curious and adventurous. Now, there has never been more opportunity and ways to engage with them. It has also never been more challenging and more complex. We are going to spend lots of time over the next few days looking at the Muslim traveler, the Indian traveler, the Chinese outbound traveler, and more to try to get a sense of what's going on. But this is one of the big challenges before all of us. And this also brings us to the state of digital. Digital is one of those very important ways to engage with them. But remember at the beginning, I was telling you, I've been hearing this, well, this industry is kind of behind in Asia Pacific, technically, which could be the case in terms of reservation system adoption and technology and connectivity. We will definitely talk about that for sure over the next couple of days. However, every time I hear that phrase, there's this one statistic that keeps on coming into my mind from the research firm Focusrite when they look at the share of online bookings around the world for all travel, flights, hotels, and everything. And they look at the share of mobile, right, an indicator of kind of growth of that channel. You can see it's about 20 to 30% for Europe and the United States. What is it in Asia? It's extraordinary. So maybe if our industry is a little bit behind, okay, but I can tell you, your customers, they're not. They're way out ahead, and they are waiting for you. Now, some of you may already be there and engaging with them successfully. Some of you are on your way. Some of you, it may take a little bit longer. However, there is no reason today why all of us here can't do this. And this is because of this extraordinary development over the past several years of what I think of as accessible tech. Rise of so many startups that are offering technology that now enable even the smallest tour and activity companies to automate every aspect of their business, from inventory control and pricing and distribution and connectivity and booking and so forth, and it goes on and on. There are about a dozen of those companies here at this conference. I am pretty sure they'd like to talk to you. Another area, perhaps the area that has experienced the most disruption within our industry, distribution. And in particular, I'm talking about online travel agencies, the rise of these companies. It is the fastest growing channel within our industry. In preparation for this conference, we did some research. We compiled a directory of digital distributors across Asia Pacific. We identified nearly 50, in fact. These companies are raising lots of money. They're investing lots of money. They are growing really fast. This poses all sorts of questions for all of us. Should you work with them? How should you work with them? How many should you work with? Which one should you work with? How much should it all cost? Should you work with them at all? We'll be asking these questions over the next couple of days. A lot of these companies, most of them are here at this conference. If you have these questions, go find them. Go talk to them. I'm sure they'd love to talk to you. The last big theme. All of this growth within this industry does not come without cost. We are seeing this everywhere, especially in our industry. This has become a very significant issue. How do we address this? Another issue that raises all sorts of questions. How much can we grow? How can we grow and yet preserve those places that are essential to our industry? How do we make sure that what we do supports local cultures? How do we preserve those cultures and support those local communities? How do we work with local governments to make this happen? How do we have a voice? So I think you can see over the next couple days, we have a lot to talk about, and we have a lot to do. Is Asia behind? I just fundamentally don't believe it. I don't think so. I believe, in fact, that the future of so much of our industry, it's going to be written here. In fact, by many of you who are in this room. We are at this incredible place. We have this opportunity to come together as an industry to ask the questions that matter most to our business, to share our learnings. Even though many of us are competitors, we are also in this industry together, and we have an enormous opportunity to elevate this industry and advance it. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the in-destination industry. It's the fourth largest sector of travel and tourism in Asia Pacific. It is the most important part of travel. It is the best part of travel. This is your Arival. Thank you.